Hello everybody. Today we'll be doing statistical second question. And the question is, you need to prepare a spreadsheet in MS Excel to classify 50 fixed integer numbers varying between 500 to 600 generated at random according to the following class interval. Class interval is 500 to 520, 520 to 540, 540 to 560, 560 to 580, 580 and above. The frequency you need to calculate over here. You required first is prepare a frequency distribution table using the above data. And second is you need to compute the mean and standard deviation for the discrete data. So the first thing you need to find out the 50 fixed integer numbers. So you need to calculate 50 fixed integer numbers varying between 500 to 600 generated random. So how to generate random? There are functions in order to calculate, in order to generate the random numbers. The first function is the random function. The random function helps to find out any number randomly. Okay. So provided in the question which has been given to us, in the question that is given, you need to provide the 15 teachers between 500 to 600. So you need to provide numbers from 500 to 600. For that, the random function has another function called as the random between function. This function returns any random integer number between the number you specify. So syntax is random between bracket bottom comma top. What is bottom? Where bottom is the number least and the top is the maximum number. So in the question, it is given 500 to 600, right? So we'll apply the function over here, random between, that is equivalent to random between bracket 500 would be my bottom number, that is the least number, and the maximum number would be 600. So the syntax for random between, I'll repeat, is bottom comma top. The bottom is the least and the top is the maximum. So in the question which was given is that you need to provide the 50 fixed integer numbers varying from 500 to 600. The numbers has to be between 500 to 600. That's why my bottom is taken as 500 and 600 is taken to be as the top. Bracket close, and then I'll enter. So 531 is any number which is chosen by the computer between 500 to 600. So this is the one number we had calculated. We need to calculate it 50 fixed integer numbers. So I'll just drag this particular function into 50 cells. And my 50 cells come out to be till E10. That is, I have 5 columns and 10 rows. 5 into 10, 50. So these are my 50 integer numbers. But these are not fixed integer numbers. Why I'm saying these 50 are not fixed integer numbers but varying integer numbers, I'll tell you. Supposingly, I'll write anything over here and I press enter. These integer numbers will change. Just look at the screen and observe once I press enter. Once I press enter, the integer numbers change. As supposingly I'll again write anything else, press enter and then again change. So these numbers are changing. Whereas in the question, we had been given that you need to provide 50 fixed integer numbers. In order to provide 50 fixed integer numbers, what we'll do is I'll copy these integer numbers and paste special. I'll copy this, and on G1, I'll not paste it, but I'll paste special. I click on the paste special and there'll be a dialog box. The dialog box says what you need to paste special. You need to paste special all formulas, values, formats, validation, what? So I need to paste values only over here. So I'll click OK over here and I'll get the fixed integer numbers. I've just made it in a box and colored them in the blue, which says that this is my 50 fixed integer numbers. So these are my 50 fixed integer numbers. Now I'll just show you that these 50 fixed integer numbers will not change, whereas the integer numbers which are not in a box will change. I'll press anything and press enter. These integer numbers changes, but my integer numbers which are in the box doesn't change. Now, coming back to the question again. Now the question says, you have classified 50 fixed integer numbers varying between 500 to 600, which are generated at random. Now, according to the following class intervals, you need to prepare frequency distribution table. So class intervals are being given 500 to 520, 520 to 540, and the 600 that's being given. You need to prepare the frequency distribution. Let's prepare the frequency distribution. I'll have class interval. It says 500 to 520, 520 to 540. Let me drag it and let's see whether it comes out to be. Yes, it comes out. Frequency. In another column, I need to calculate it. Then I need to calculate X. Then I need to calculate Fx. And then I need to calculate Fx square. So this is how we calculate frequency distribution table. This is the format to calculate the frequency distribution table. So first of all, what is the frequency? Let's start with the frequency. So frequency function is basically which helps to find out any particular number which occurs in that particular range, the number of times. I'll repeat. This calculates how often values occur within a range of values and then returns a vertical array of numbers. Example, in the question itself, we have numbers from 500 to 600, right? So, and we have created the intervals, class intervals from 500 to 520, 520 to 540. Now, supposing there are two numbers only, which are from 500 to 520. So the frequency of occurring numbers from 500 to 520 would be 2, whereas from 520 to 540 could be 6, could be 7, could be 8. So in total, the number of times the numbers appears in that particular range refers to as frequency, right? So the frequency syntax is frequency bracket data array comma bins array. What is this data array? The data array is a set of values of which you want to count frequency of. So the data array is basically the set for which you need to count the frequency. So in my question, in my table, in this particular, what is my data array? This blue box. So this is the data for which I need to find out how many times the values occur. Now going back, this is the data array. Now what is bins array? Bins array is the intervals into which you want to group the values of data array. So these are the intervals into which you want to group the values of data array. I'll explain you with the data over here. So the bins array from the first class interval is 500 to 520, which is the maximum value I want that frequency, that data frequency should take. So let me write down. In the first one, I want 519 is the maximum value till the maximum value the table, this particular table should find out the frequency for. Similarly, for the second one, that is from 520 to 540, I want to take the maximum value till 539. And the last one, I want to take it at 600 because I have told that number has to be between 500 to 600. So the last number, if 600 also occurs, the last interval should take the 600 number as well. So this is my bins array. This is my data array in a blue box. And let my bins array to be in some other color, gray. Now, how to calculate frequency? So this is something, the most tricky part over here, which you need to understand. In order to calculate frequency, we need to calculate the frequency for all the cells. So we need to select the cells for which you need to calculate the frequency for, and do not select anything. Just write down the frequency function that is equivalent to frequency bracket data array is the blue box and bins array is the green box, which I need to select, bracket close. I'll not enter it out. I want the frequency to be calculated for all the cells which I have selected. So in order to find it out, what you need to do is you need to press Control Shift Enter. You need to press Control Shift and Enter. I'll repeat. In order to find out the frequency for all the cells of intervals, you need to press, once you write down the function, first you need to select the cells, then write down the function, and then rather than clicking on enter, you need to press Control Shift and Enter. Once you press it out, you could see your frequency or the values of frequency comes in all cells. How to check whether they are 50 or not? Just under the totals, you can write down the function of sum bracket, add it up, and find it out whether it is 50 or not. So we had checked, the frequency comes out to be 50. This is how frequency is to be calculated. In order to calculate frequency distribution table, we need to calculate X. So how to calculate x over here? So we need to calculate the small x, whose formula is x equivalent to bracket x bar minus a bracket close divided by a. What is x bar? X bar is the actual mean for that particular interval, class interval. A is the assumed mean, any midpoint which any mean from the midpoint which you have calculated. And I is the class interval difference, the interval difference which you had taken from that particular class interval. So applying this particular formula in that particular cell, we'll get to know what is the value of x. So you can just learn this particular formula. You have to learn this formula. X bar minus a bracket I. So how to apply this function over here? Please be carefully, note carefully over here. Equivalent to bracket x bar, that means my actual mean. Actual mean would be taken for this particular interval, that is 520 plus 500 bracket close divided by, there are two numbers, so we'll divide it by 2 minus assumed mean. I can take assumed mean for these two, for the middle interval, that is 540 to 560. So I'll just select 560 plus 540. You can take of any divided by 2. Okay. So x bar minus a, that is assumed mean, we have find it out, but we need to divide I. We'll make a larger bracket, then divide bracket again. The class interval, what is the class interval? The difference between the class interval. So 520 minus your 500, bracket close, and then enter. I got the value. Now if I need to drag it out, drag this particular function into other cells, anything which we need to make it fixes, yes, we need to make fix the assumed mean. So we'll press F4 in order to fix the particular cell. And enter. Now I'll just drag it out. And the values of x has come. So similarly, you can calculate fx by multiplying frequency with that of x. Nothing has to be fixed upon. We'll just drag it up. Similarly, in order to calculate fx square, we'll multiply fx with x and the values will be there. I'll just drag it up. In order to find the total, I've already found total for frequency. I'll just drag this particular cell horizontally and my values will be there. So I had find it out the first part, that is I had prepared a frequency distribution table using the above data. Now I need to compute the mean and standard deviation for the discrete data. So I don't know whether you know or not. So in statistical, there are two datas, discrete data and continuous data. So what is the discrete data? Discrete data is the exact figures. So supposingly, if I say this particular student has a height to be 5 feet 3 inches or 5 feet 5 inches. So this is an exact number which I had provided of height, right? So the data for height has to be specific. So the data for height is a discrete data. Now the class, and now the continuous data. What is the other type of continuous data? The continuous data is a range, the range which is available. So if I say the students in my class are above range, below average, above average. So that's a particular range I need to calculate. So for above range, I have above average, I will say a range of people who are scoring above 70. The people who are scoring below 70 goes to be below average. So I have selected a range. So finding out marks, finding out, seeking whether it is above average or below average, this particular thing is a continuous data. Whereas height, which has to be specific, it refers to as a discrete data. So I need to find it out mean and standard deviation for the discrete data, which would be mean and standard deviation. Mean would be calculated through average formula. Average is a function which says you need to find out the mean for that particular specific range. Here I have a range of discrete data, and the discrete data is this blue box, and select this blue box, press enter, and my mean would be calculated. So in my particular data, 552.88 is the mean. Standard deviation, here the syntax is STDEV. Standard deviation is STDEV. What is standard deviation? Standard deviation helps us to find out the range. It helps us to find out the change. How much change is there? So standard deviation syntax is, again, for the discrete data, other numbers is the data. So I'll again select the blue box, and bracket close and enter. So this is my mean and this is my standard deviation. So this is how I had calculated, or I had find it out, my distribution table and mean and standard deviation for the discrete data. So this is your second question for stats.